Something massive is unfolding right now in America, and the mainstream media won't say a word about it. While families fire up their grills on Labor Day, the foundations of the U.S. economy and global power structure are shaking. George Soros, the global elites, the Federal Reserve, they all thought they had the game rigged. But a storm is breaking, and it's one they didn't see coming. Here's the brutal truth. The U.S. dollar, the symbol of American dominance for decades, is collapsing from within. Nations across the globe are ditching it. BRICS, the alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is building a financial system designed to cut the dollar out completely. Gold and silver are surging, not because of some random market cycle, but because investors, central banks, and even rival governments no longer trust Washington's money printer. Meanwhile, Trump is back in the arena, and whether you love him or hate him, his return is sending shockwaves. The tariffs he's promising, the protectionist policies he's pushing, they're more than politics. They're an open declaration of war on the global order that Soros and his allies spent decades constructing. And here's where it all collides. The American worker. For years, industries were shipped overseas. Entire towns hollowed out. Labor Day became more of a hollow ritual than a real celebration of American strength. But now, with the dollar on the ropes and the global order fracturing, the rebirth of American industry is suddenly possible, and it terrifies the elites. Let's connect the dots. George Soros isn't just some billionaire with opinions. He's a symbol of the system that thrived on decline, funding chaos, betting against currencies, and reshaping nations to fit his vision. Handing him a medal on Labor Day was no coincidence. It was the establishment rubbing salt in the wound, celebrating the man who profited while ordinary Americans lost their jobs and savings. But Soros never planned for this. A populist resurgence, a dollar crisis he can't control, and a political comeback that threatens to rewrite the script. Look at the dollar's decline. Since the pandemic, the Federal Reserve pumped trillions into the economy, claiming it was temporary support. But debt exploded, inflation ripped through every household, and trust in the system cracked. Now, as BRICS expands and nations from the Middle East to Latin America line up to join, the petrodollar, the backbone of U.S. global power, is under direct assault. If oil no longer needs to be traded in dollars, America loses its greatest financial weapon overnight. This is why gold and silver are skyrocketing. Central banks in China, Russia, and even smaller nations are stacking precious metals like never before. They're not stupid. They see the writing on the wall. A world where the dollar is no longer king. And guess who gets crushed in that world? Not the elites who already cashed out. It's the American middle class. The workers whose paychecks are worth less every month. The savers whose dollars buy less food, less gas, less future. But here's the twist. That collapse also opens the door for something else. Trump's tariffs and industrial policies, the push to bring manufacturing back home, the rising anger of American workers. It's all converging. While Soros and the globalists cheer for open borders and financial centralization, millions of Americans are demanding the opposite: sovereignty, industry, and control. Let's be clear, what's happening isn't just about economics, it's about power. For decades, the dollar wasn't just America's currency, it was America's weapon. Every sanction, every trade deal, every military intervention was backed by the simple fact that the world needed dollars. If you wanted oil, if you wanted trade, if you wanted access to global markets, you had no choice. But the elites got greedy. They printed and borrowed until the system cracked. Now BRICS is accelerating the shift. They're openly discussing a gold-backed currency, a system immune to dollar manipulation. Saudi Arabia, once the bedrock of the petrodollar, is flirting with joining BRICS and selling oil in yuan. If that happens, the entire architecture of American dominance collapses overnight. And while the White House pretends everything's under control, the markets know better. That's why the dollar index is bleeding. That's why precious metals are surging, and that's why investors worldwide are bracing for impact. And then there's Trump. His return is more than an election campaign. It's a counterattack. He's calling for tariffs to shield American industries, for ending foreign entanglements, and for putting labor back at the center. Globalists call it dangerous. But to millions of Americans watching their wages shrink and their towns collapse, it sounds like survival. Labor Day 2025 is no longer just about parades. It's about whether American workers finally fight back against decades of betrayal. George Soros? He's on the wrong side of this wave. His entire empire was built on exploiting fragile systems, from shorting currencies to funding political movements that destabilize nations. But what happens when the currency he relies on, the US dollar itself, loses its global dominance? His bets turn toxic. His influence shrinks. The system he helped build starts eating itself alive. The elites thought they were untouchable. They handed Soros a medal, celebrated globalization, and mocked the idea of American resurgence. But now the ground beneath them is moving. Inflation isn't under control. Debt is spiraling past $34 trillion. Ordinary people are stacking gold and silver for the first time in generations. The very foundation of the global order is eroding, and the so-called untouchables are panicking. Here's the bigger picture. This isn't just America's fight. When the dollar collapses, the ripple effects will hit every corner of the world. Europe, already in an energy crisis, becomes weaker. Developing nations tied to dollar debt face default. The elites know this, and they're scrambling to rewrite the rules. But history shows that once trust in a currency is gone, it never comes back. So what does this mean for you, the viewer? It means the storm is here, and it's not going away. The smart money is moving out of paper promises, out of manipulated markets, and into hard assets. It means that American workers, ignored for decades, suddenly have leverage again. And it means that the battle between Trump's vision of national strength and Soros's vision of global control is reaching its breaking point. This Labor Day isn't just another holiday. It's a symbol, a signal that the decline is over and the fight for America's future is beginning. Trump's return, the dollar's collapse, the surge of gold and silver, the rebellion of American workers, these forces are colliding in real time. The question isn't if the system will change. The question is who will control it when it does. Because here's the bottom line. The era of easy money is dead. The elites are out of moves. And for the first time in decades, America's future won't be decided in Davos or in the offices of the Federal Reserve or in the boardrooms of billionaires like George Soros. It will be decided by whether the American people seize this moment or let it slip away.